Welcome back, Money Vikings, where we talk about everything investing, health, and collectibles combined together, what we call a life of true wealth. We have a very important and critical topic for everyone today that we need to do a deep dive on. It's how much house can you afford? And this is a very critical time in our nation's history to talk about this. First of all, millennials are generally in prime home buying time of their lives, right? So they're, I think, somewhere around maybe 23, 24, 25, up to 40 years old now. So they're in the prime time of buying a home. But the problem is it's kind of a really tricky time to buy a home. There's a lot of challenges out there to buying a home. So I'm hoping that this article, or this video, I should say, will help with all of that, and we'll go from there. But basically, the two questions I want to talk about is how much house can you afford, and is home ownership still worth it? And this is from someone who's worked in real estate for over 20 years, so I do have quite a bit of experience here. So again, like all of our videos and content, it's not advice. This is just what we've done and what we would do. So would appreciate if you press the like and subscribe as we grow the channel and improve here. And it just helps motivate us to, continue to engage with everyone. So if this adds value to your life, or you find it entertaining or interesting, or I'm just silly to look at, which is probably true, then, please hit that like and subscribe. So with that, let's jump right into it. Okay, we're going to go on to here, and how much house can you really afford, salary required, which we'll get to. So as I mentioned, it's a tricky time to buy a house. And at the end of the day, I still think it has value. I still think that for me personally, buying a house, buying a piece of property is a core tenet of the American dream, quote unquote. But it's not an absolute necessity. I did want to emphasize that. I want to emphasize the concept that there's a way to live a true wealth life without owning a home. And many people do it. It's not something that has to be done. But I do think that over time that there's a lot of value in retiring with a house that's paid off. You own this large asset. You utilize the asset in so many ways, with building community and memories, taking care of your family, taking care of your health. So, having a home adds a lot of value, especially one that you desire in a neighborhood you want to live in with the lifestyle you want to live. And we'll talk about that. So, I talk about it. Current challenges. Obviously, we're now in a higher interest rate environment. We do need a little bit of historical perspective, because historically, interest rates have typically been this way. Over the last 10 years, we got used to these weird, 3.5%, 4% interest rates, maybe sometimes even lower. And if you look historically over interest rates in this country, that just has not been the norm. Typically, they've averaged, I think, around 7%. And at this point of this filming, I think we're somewhere hovering around 6 or 5.8 or something like that. So they are higher. But the higher interest rates combined with high housing prices is making for a toxic combo. It's making it very hard for people to squeeze in. And the other thing is, people tend to, if people have locked in 3.5% rates, they may feel stuck. They may feel like they don't want to move and screw that up in any way. So, and then what that does is that brings the supply down. So there's less supply, which of course makes prices go up even more. So it's kind of an interesting time, and it's a tricky time. And that's why I wanted to do this video right now. Like I said, there's low supply, there's intense competition, and there's uncertain personal finances. People have been hit pretty hard with inflation over the last year and a half to 2 years. So it's making for a complicated labyrinth for home ownership. But let me talk about why I still think there's a benefit or benefits to home ownership. So number one, my first one is rents do rise. And as a real estate investor, the real estate investors, they have to make a return on their investment, and their costs go up. And as all of society's costs go up and inflation goes up, rents go up too. And typically you'll see a 3 to 5% annual, increase there. The good thing about home ownership can be that you have a locked in mortgage that doesn't really rise. Now, if you have an adjustable rate mortgage, that's a whole other situation. And I'm not a big fan of those personally. I really think it's smarter to get fixed rate if you can. I think that's the way to go. Again, it's something that you can depend on over 30, 20, 30, 40 years. But that's kind of where I'm at on that one. So the other thing about home ownership is that you do own an asset, and over time, the value of real estate in the United States has typically gone up. Now, there's been exceptions, the Great Recession, 2007, 2008 timeframe, and then 2009-10, you saw a lot of real estate values go down. You had a very strange situation created by banks and by different laws out there, and it just became kind of the Wild West. So values do go down at times depending on the overall economy and depending on if any bubbles are built. But typically, if you look at, again, a long sort of time horizon of real estate values in the United States, typically values rise. So again, you're owning an asset that will probably at least maybe keep up with inflation, we would hope. Big thing with real estate is the location, of course. So it's cliche by now, but after a couple decades working in real estate, you really realize that it's all about location. And this doesn't mean it has to be the fanciest location. It just means that we need to be strategic about it. Is it an area that has a robust economy? Because the economy in a local area is what makes or breaks real estate. So is the economy resilient enough? Are there enough different kinds of industries? You don't want to be maybe in like a one corporation town where it depends on that one, big company to follow through and to come through. And otherwise, if that company goes away, the whole area, falls apart. So I'm big on looking at the economics of a location and also just the desirability of it. Is it something that, is it a place that you want to live? And a lot of that we'll get into later, but it's also about lifestyle. So some people prefer more of an urban vibe. Some people, prefer the country. Some people actually, like me, they enjoy the suburbs. I like the suburbs. I think it's a nice hybrid of the two. So long-term investment, we kind of covered that one. Home ownership gives a owner more control and options. You get to decide what color to paint the door and your bedroom, and you get to decide what fixtures and how to decorate. Well, decorating, you can always decorate, of course, but you can make modifications to a house that you personally want to make. And then there's the whole concept of pride of ownership and community building. And so I find you typically find that when a person owns their homes, or there's a lot of high home ownership in an area or a neighborhood, there's a lot of pride of ownership. There's pride in that community. People, I think, want to be a little more neighborly, and they want to help, make sure that community stays clean, safe, and a pleasant place to raise a family or just live, whatever it is you want to do. So there are reasons to not invest in real estate, and I do talk about those quite a bit. The biggest one, as you know, is that when something goes wrong and something breaks or whatever, and major things do break on houses, it's on you, and you have to figure out how to pay for it, and you got to figure out how to get a good contractor to help you if you don't have the skills, and most people don't have the skills. Some people do, and those people are pretty lucky if they can do that work themselves. But some things take specialized equipment or specialized technical knowledge that we're just not going to know. If the HVAC breaks, I don't know, good luck figuring that out. I don't think that's going to be, that's a lot different than maybe doing some light painting or a little bit of drywall repair. But there are reasons to not invest in real estate. We go into them. I have a video here. This is more for real estate investors. But there are reasons. You got my frowny face right there. So let's get into tips for home buying success. So these are things that I wish I had known when I started 20 years ago. When buying a home, it's important to follow certain rules to ensure a successful and satisfactory purchase. The first one, and we'll get into this in a minute in terms of how much house can you afford, is setting a realistic budget. It's called being house poor. So people, sometimes they overdo it. There used to be a saying that you would just buy as much house as possible. And I don't believe in that anymore. I think you need to find the right sweet spot for your personal financial situation, your personal family situation, and you need to stick to that. Because when you stretch yourself so far, and you become quote unquote house poor, it just leaves very little room for the emergency car repair, the vacation that you might want to take, the extras in life that we enjoy, and it can really stretch a budget. You got to ask, is owning that home really worth it? You know, could you live with a home that maybe isn't as gussied up, or maybe is a little smaller, so that you're not house poor, but you're getting yourself into the market and you're building equity over time. So that's what one has to ask themselves. The second thing I'd say is getting pre-approved for a mortgage. So you have to get pre-approved, I think, before you start house hunting. And a lot of people, they just jump. And nowadays it's pretty easy too, because we can jump on here onto Zillow and to Redfin, and you can just start looking at houses and dreaming. Well, I think that's just not the way to go. You got to go get pre-approved through your bank or a mortgage loan consultant or lender, or a loan broker, and get pre-approved. That they really run the numbers, and we'll go into the numbers here. There's certain rules out there that we'll get into. So I still believe in hiring and finding a qualified real estate agent. So I've worked with a lot of agents over the years and have had some great experiences, but you need to find one that's right for you. It's just like a financial advisor. You've got to find a person that is right for you and your family. So, never hesitate if it doesn't feel right to you and you feel like you're being pressured in the wrong way. I would find somebody else, because you do need an expert, but you also need someone that understands that this is a very big decision, very big purchase. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it and try, but it takes a lot. It's quite an effort to buy and sell real estate. So I'm on to that one. Conduct inspections is the other thing I wanted to mention. Before buying a home, now inspections are typically required by lenders, but always a good idea to get a thorough inspection, because you never know and typically things break pretty quickly. You buy a house, if it's an older house, even newer ones, sometimes things break. So it's all good stuff. So let's talk about it. How much house can you afford? So I always look as I mentioned before, I look for right location. I look for right size for my family, the right lifestyle, city, country, suburb, and the right price. So let's get into price. There's the 28 to 30% rule for mortgages. Most people need a mortgage to buy a house, especially in high cost of living areas. The first thing to consider is that a mortgage payment is comprised of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So people sometimes they just run the calculations and they just do if I borrow this much, this is how much I'm paying in principal, and this is how much I'm paying in interest. Well, no, the mortgage also includes taxes and insurance, which also adds hundreds of dollars every single month forever. So these costs combined should not exceed 28%, ideally, of your gross monthly take-home pay. So let's look at a couple examples. And the other rule of thumb they use is they talk about 36% of your gross monthly pay. No more than 36% of gross monthly pay should go to total debt servicing. So here's some estimates based on $100,000 a year. I used $100,000 because the average home price in the U.S. is about $350,000. In a lot of areas, it can be hard to find a nice home at that price. So some places it's possible, but a lot of places it is not. So I use that salary because that's a salary that I think families really start to feel a little bit like they're getting a little bit ahead, and that they can make all their bills every month, especially in the last year and a half with the way inflation's been going. So we're going to assume that the person has $250 in other debts every month. That could be school loans combined with maybe a small car loan, and a down payment of $20,000. That means that they could afford a $370,000 home. So that's on $100,000 a year. Now you pump it up to $150,000 a year, and we're going to look at a $250 a month debts and $40,000 down payment, because typically if someone's making $150,000, they can probably save a little more over a couple of years for a down payment. And this person can afford about a $580,000 house. And then you start to get into that's a pretty darn decent house in a lot of areas. But not all areas. There's some really high cost of living cities now where, you're talking 7, 8, pushing $1 million to get a, pretty average single family home. Pretty wild, isn't it? One thing I wanted to mention too, just a little word of advice, is that I always found that in the house buying and hunting process, if people that aren't as experienced get fixated on one house, and maybe they might lose that house through a bidding war, or they're just not ready. And what I've found is that there's always another house. Something always comes again that can really suit your needs. And sometimes it's even something that's better. So, I wouldn't get too depressed about it if you lose, quote unquote, the dream home, because you know what? There's other places that can become that. And a home is really more about the memories and the people and how you make it unique to you than the actual home itself. It's just a bunch of, wood and brick and tile and paint. It's just a shell, it's a box basically. Humans make it, something that is full of life and love and rest and just experiencing life. So, how did I do it? I did it the old-fashioned way. Early on, tried to live below my means as much as I could and sock away a good down payment, and focused on improving my credit score and just securing stable employment. And then started with a small condo, and then over time did the Lily Hopper approach, which we talk about in some of our other YouTube videos. So if you want to check that out, check it out on our blog. There's some good stuff. I added some other things in this article, so go to truewealth.moneyvikings.com and you'll get some links. And also, I love these links to NerdWallet, and Zillow has a couple of good calculators. I love these calculators. So check out the NerdWallet calculators and the Zillow calculators. But other than that, thanks a lot for listening. And please check out more of our videos. Please like and subscribe and share with your friends if this adds value and you find it entertaining. And I really appreciate it, and we really appreciate it. So y'all take care of yourselves and take care of each other.